Mono Green Stompy is Pauper's premier aggro deck. This Tier 1 deck utilizes a mix of aggressive creatures, protection, and pump spells, as well as green synergy for some good old-fashioned beatdown. The core of this deck are its creatures. Each creature is unique in its own powerful way. Let's start off with our Turn 1 beatdown creatures. They consist of 4 Nettle Sentinel, 4 Young Wolf, and 2 Vault Scourge. Nettle Sentinel is a 2/2 for 1 green that only untaps whenever we cast a green spell, which, luckily for us, is almost every spell in our deck. Young Wolf is a 1/1 for 1 green that has Undying, which states that if it had no +1/+1 counters on it when it died, you may return it to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. This card is great against removal. Finally, Vault Scourge is a 1/1 flyer with lifelink for 1 and either 2 life or 1 black mana. But since we are a mono green deck, Vault Scourge is always cast for 1 mana and 2 life. This makes it an evasive 1-drop that can help us stabilize against other aggro decks. All of these threats have their own unique abilities, but the reason they are so strong on turn 1 is because they encourage our opponents not to block. Why is this so important? Because we run 4 Skargan Pit Skulks. Pit Skulk is a 1/1 for 1 green that has 2 abilities. The first is Bloodthirst 1, which states that if an opponent was dealt damage earlier in the turn in which you cast Skargan Pit Skulk, it comes into play with a +1/+1 counter on it. This makes it essentially a 1 mana 2/2 if you time it right. Oh, and it also has the ability creatures with power less than Pit Skulk's power can't block it. This is truly a powerful ability as it pairs up nicely with our pump spells in the deck. But before we get to those, we have a few more creatures to cover. 4 Quirion Rangers are in the deck as a utility creature. Ranger has a unique ability, return a forest you control to its owner's hand to untap target creature. Note that you can only do this once per turn, but that means we can even do it on our opponent's turn. Why is this important? Well, it gives our creature pseudo-vigilance as we can attack in and then use Ranger's ability to untap our creature. This ability also lets us tap a forest for green mana, then return it to our hand with the ability, and then play that forest as our land drop for the turn if we're short on lands. Next up, we have 2 Garruk's Companion, 2 River Boa, 2 Silhana Ledgewalker, and 1 Shinnin of Life's Roar. Each of these creatures has their own unique ability that helps us push through damage. Companion has Trample, River Boa has Island Walk and lets us pay a green to regenerate it, and Silhana Ledgewalker has Hexproof and can't be blocked except by creatures with flying. Shinnin of Life's Roar is a 1/2 for 1 and a green that forces all of our opponent's creatures that are able to block it to do so. This clears the path for all of our other creatures to get through. The last creature in our deck consists of 3 Nest Invaders. This 2/2 for 1 and a green also produces an 0/1 Eldrazi spawn token when it enters the battlefield. This spawn is a good chump blocker, it helps us cast our creatures that have a generic mana in their mana cost, it wears a Rancor very well, and is Morbid Enabler for one of our next cards in the Protection and Pump Spells section. Next up, we have our Protection and Pump Spells. These spells can be used to push through damage and save our creatures. Knowing when to cast these spells is the key to making Stompy such a good deck. Usually it's correct to wait until your opponent forces you to use them. Our Protection and Pump Spells consists of 4 Groundswell, 4 Vines of Vastwood, 2 Mutagenic Growth, 2 Hunger of the Howlpack, and 4 Rancor. Groundswell gives a creature +2/+2 or +4/+4 if we had a land enter the battlefield under our control this turn. This works extremely well with Quirion Ranger, since Ranger lets us always have a land drop. Groundswell, as well as our other pump spells, are great for pushing through damage and can be used before the blocker step on a Pit Skulk to make the Pit Skulk essentially unblockable. Vines of Vastwood is the best protection and pump spell in the deck, as it is both. For 1 green, we can give any creature protection from our opponent's spells and abilities. We can also cast it with its kicker cost for 1 more green to give that creature +4/+4. I generally use this card defensively, and it's best to use your other pump spells first to draw out removal. Vines can also be used on your opponent's creature in order to stop a spell they are targeting that creature with. Mutagenic Growth is usually used to save a creature from damage-based removal such as Lightning Bolt, but it can also help us push through damage, and it gives us an instant speed untapped Nettle Sentinel if we are tapped out to block an attacker. Hunger of the Howlpack is an instant that puts a single +1/+1 counter on target creature. However, it has the Morbid mechanic, which in this case states that if a creature died earlier in the turn before you cast the spell, put 3 +1/+1 counters on that creature instead. This has great synergy with the Eldrazi Scion token that I was talking about earlier, as we can sack the Scion at instant speed to enable Morbid. Rancor is an amazing enchantment that gives the enchanted creature +2/+0 and trample. This turns all of our creatures into threats and even comes back to our hand when the enchanted creature dies. Our mana base is as simple as it can get, just 16 forests. The reason we run so few is because we only need a few lands to function, and with Quirion Ranger letting us reuse our lands if we are stuck on one land, it makes more one-land hands keepable. For our sideboard, we are playing 4 Scattershot Archer for the Delver matchup, 2 Feed the Clan for the Burn matchup and other aggro matchups, 3 Gleeful Sabotage for the Affinity and Boggles matchups, 3 Thermal Karst for the Tron matchup, 2 Epic Confrontation for some removal, and 1 Tangle to swing the game in our favor. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't heard, Peregrine Drake has been emergency banned starting November 16th. This means that mid-range decks are going to be making a comeback, so expect to see some of those in the near future. If you like this video, make sure to like, comment, and share the video. If you're interested in the deck, I put a link in the description that will take you to the deck list on mtggoldfish.com. There you can see the prices for both MTGO and paper, and also don't forget to subscribe and please follow me on Twitter at Pauper_Fox. And as always, don't forget to check out the Pauper subreddit r/Pauper for all your Pauper needs, and I'll see you next time.